you're going to have to learn the skill, the lost art of courage, and you're going to have to start speaking it. Welcome to another episode of Living Life in Tune. I'm your host, Adam Lee. This is the show where we talk about keeping the areas of our life in tune, areas that matter most, like leadership, personal growth, faith, purpose. Everything that matters, the aspects of our life are like an instrument, and if we set them down and walk away from them, they'll slowly become out of tune, and everybody knows the sound of an untuned instrument is awful. And so the aspects of our life are the exact same way. We have to be intentional about them. We have to pick them up. We have to keep them in tune, and we have to when we play those instruments, so to speak, they've got to make a good sound. So that's what this show is all about. I'm continuing in a series that I started called The Lost Arts. And today I want to talk about the lost art of courage. The lost art of courage. And men, I'm talking to us in this episode. For everybody else listening, I believe you can get something from this 100%, and it'll be beneficial for anybody. But men, I really want you to lean in, pay attention. This one is for us. God put courage in the heart of every person. Specifically, men, He put courage in our hearts. He deposited courage in our heart when we were born into this world. And He has plans to use that courage. He has plans for that courage to come alive in our life, to make a difference in this world. Too many men walk through their lives without exercising the art of courage, courageous acts, courageous love, courageous leadership, courageous sacrifice, courageous risks. Far too often, we find in our society today that there is an overabundance of men who are silent. Fatherlessness is rampant in our culture today. Men who are quiet, who leave, who are absent, who are silent. And it's just a tragedy. So this episode, The Lost Art of Courage Inside the Heart of a Man, is something I'm talking about today. God did not create man to be silent. And I want to point that out by going to Scripture. And I want to show you something that I read in a book a couple years ago the book's called The Silence of Adam by Dr. Larry Crabb, and I will link to this book in the show notes. This is one of those books in my life that changed the direction of my life. I was about 5 or 6 years ago. I was a quiet guy, really passive, easy come, easy go. You know what I'm talking about. I didn't assert myself or speak my mind very often, and I was literally heading in that direction. I picked up this book along with some others, and this book literally changed the direction of my life. This book gave me a perspective that I had never heard before. So Larry Crabb, The Silence of Adam, I'll link to that. This book is the real deal. The whole premise of this book, really quick, is that Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, right? We all know that. It's the story of original sin. Eve was deceived by the serpent. She took of the fruit and she ate it, and she gave that fruit to Adam and he ate it. And we have this original sin. What Larry Crabb points out in his book, The Silence of Adam, is that we may look at that as the original sin, Eve eating the apple, but that was not the original sin. The original sin was the silence of Adam. Let me read this verse out of Genesis 3, verses 6. It goes like this. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. I want us to lean in to that one phrase. She turned to her husband, who was there. He was there. So the whole premise of this book, The Silence of Adam, is that Adam was in the garden with Eve. It doesn't say that she took the fruit and ate of it and then called out to her husband, Adam, you got to come check out this fruit. She's not calling out to Adam. She's not going and seeking Adam to find him. She's not showing him the next day. No, he was there. And the whole point is that the original sin of man, was it the eating of the apple? No, it wasn't. It was the silence of man. It was the lack of Adam speaking up to his wife as she was being deceived by the serpent. How much different would it have been if Adam had the courage in that moment to say, Eve, stop, we can't do this. We have to obey God. He told us not to do this. What would happen if he would have had the courage to speak up like that? So Larry Crabb goes on in his book, and he just lays out what it means to be a man, what it means to speak up, what it means to lead the way and not be silent, have the courage to not be silent as a man. So this is it. This is the lost art of courage. And a big part of that, men, is how we speak up, and it permeates everything in our life, from the littlest things to the most important things. If we don't practice the art of speaking up, actually letting our voice be heard. You know what? I've heard it said like this before. If something bothers you, why don't you just let it bother you? God put in the heart of every man an aptitude for righteousness, an aptitude for to be a protector and to provide justice, God put that in the heart of every man. And if the things of this world bother us and we just stuff them down as men, we just push those things away. Oh, I'm not going to let that bother me, or easy come, easy go. I'm just going to let this slide. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal used to be the anthem of my life. And this book helped me realize that it's actually silence that killed mankind. And if something bothers us as men, we ought to let it bother us, number one. And number two, we ought to speak up about it. Man, I just wonder how many things in your life today would change if you spoke up as a man. Now, I know you have to do it in a loving and respectful way, but if you had the courage to speak up about something that's bothering you, something that is not good, if you had the courage to speak up, I wonder what would change. I wonder how many opportunities just dissolve right in front of us as men because we don't speak up. I wonder how many opportunities we have to love and to lead in our families just go away because we're silent. I wonder how many opportunities at work just go away because I don't have the courage to speak up. And it's something that men have struggled with since the very beginning of time. And it's what happened to Adam in the garden, and it's what this book absolutely changed the direction of my life. I thought to myself a couple of years ago, Adam, you are done being silent. You are done being easy come, easy go. You're going to have to learn the skill, the lost art of courage, and you're going to have to start speaking up. So it's been a journey I've been on personally. I am not a professional at it, but I am no longer allowing myself to stay silent. And I hope this podcast is a challenge to you right now as you're listening. If you want to lead in love as a man of courage, you have to learn the lost art of speaking up, assertiveness, and we have to have the courage to speak up. So I want to spend the next couple minutes and just walk you down through a couple points out of Larry Crabb's book that really stood out to me and that have helped me in this area of courage and speaking up. So we have the lost art of assertiveness. Okay, that comes with this. If we're going to be courageous and speak up, if Adam was to assert himself in the garden, we might have a totally different reality today. So there's this ability to be assertive, and it's a skill because not only do we have to be assertive, but we have to do it with love and respect. And I read a book that taught me how to do this, and I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychiatrist by any stretch of the imagination. However, I read after this book, I read a lot of material on how to speak up and how to be assertive, and I learned something very practical and very simple to help men get started. Check this out. It's called an assertive I message, all right? And it goes like this. Here's an example. If you're a man and something's bugging you, you see something at work that bothers you, you see something in your kids' lives that bothers you, you see something in this world, maybe in your marriage or in your relationships in general, there's something that comes along the way, a behavior, an attitude, a mindset, something comes in front of your path, and you see it, and you think to yourself, that's not right, that's wrong, or ooh, let's make an adjustment here. Anytime that opportunity comes up, we have two options. Option A, speak up, have courage, be a man, and speak up. Or B, lose all your courage and just stay silent. Stuff that thing down. Don't let it bother you. Just stuff it down. And I got to tell you, men, the art of stuffing things down is not going to get you anywhere at all. Little things, when you stuff them down, after little thing after little thing after little thing, it becomes a big thing. Enough tiny little pebbles become a massive boulder, and then you really have an embarrassing situation on your hands. So option A is to speak up. Here's how to do this practically, and here's how I've tried to do it, and I'm learning how to do it better each and every time. It goes like this. Something happens. You're thinking that is not, you're not thinking, it's actually bothering you. So something happens, it bothers you. Here's what you do. You confront the person, and you say, listen, I love you, I respect you, but when you say or do blank, you fill in the blank. When you're late for the meeting, or when you leave a gigantic mess, for me to clean up, or when you do that to your brother or sister, if you're talking to your kids. So there's when you do or say this. Men, pay attention. When you say or do this, I feel blank, and you say the emotion felt. So listen, let's just go off the example. Hey, when you are late for a meeting, when you stroll in 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes late for a meeting, I feel irritated. So you just call out your emotion. When you do this, you call the behavior. I feel, you call out your emotion, and then you say the effect it has on you as a man. So fill in the blank. When you are a little bit late to a meeting, I feel irritated and disrespected because you are not honoring the time of the meeting, the organization, or the people in this room. And it makes me believe that you don't respect our time. So it's the behavior, you call it out. It's what you're feeling, you call it out. And it's the effects that it's having on you. You call it out. Men, this is a really simple exercise in theory, but in practice, it's very difficult to do this with love and respect. But I want to say this. If Adam could just have asserted himself in the garden, listen to me, Eve, when you are talking to that serpent and you pick that apple up, it makes me feel terrified and angry because God said not to touch that, and we can't do this. Man, wow, that would have been the difference maker. And I want to say this. Men being courageous and speaking up is the difference maker in your life today. You want to make a difference in your marriage, in your relationships with your kids, at work. Speaking up and courage is the difference maker. You have to learn this simple tool, and take it into your life and say, when you do this, I feel this because here's how it affects it. Here's how it affects me. It's a simple, assertive I message. If it's done with love and respect, men, this is going to open up so many doors for you in your life. God did not create you to be a doormat for people to walk all over. He did not create you to be silent. As a matter of fact, if you choose silence, you cannot lead the way. And God designed for a man to lead the way. He is the head of the house. He is to lead his family, his wife, and others into the presence and goodness of God. And we cannot do that by staying silent. So I pray you learn that skill of assertiveness. When you do this, I feel this because here's how it affects it. Here's how it affects me. So the truth is that men, we're all guilty of silence in our lives. We think it's easier just to let it slide. We think, I'll just let that slide. I'll just pick up the slack. I'll just be a humble, good servant, and I'll just let that go. And the problem with that is, like I said, too many little pebbles that we push away become a gigantic boulder, and it becomes very embarrassing and difficult to move that boulder in the future. So, and remember this, if you're not able to speak up in the little things, I'm talking about the little things, man. The little things. If you're not able to speak up in the little things, there's no way you'll be able to speak up with the most important things in life. That's just a fact. So imagine if Adam had the courage to speak up. Imagine what would be possible in your life today if you had the courage to speak up. What doors would that open for you? What possibilities would become available if you began to say what's really important to you and have the courage to do that? The courage to lead the way. So men, we need the courage to speak up, and we need the courage to lead the way. One of the other things in this book, and talking about the lost art of courage, is that men, we need to have a vision, what it looks like to come alive as a man, and how to see a preferred future. I've talked about this before. We need, as men, to be able to envision what a preferred future looks like for our lives, for our family, for the people that we love and lead. For all the leaders listening, men, it's our job to get a vision in our mind about the future, a preferred future, to what it looks like for us to come alive as a man in courage. And after we do that, we need to be able to talk about that vision. This is going back to the same thing, that men, it does not do us any good if we sit down in our man cave and we think about the vision for the future and we pencil it all out and we chart out the landscape and oh man, goal A and goal B and goal C, and we just get this huge plan from the Lord and get it in our minds and on paper. It does us absolutely no good if we don't speak, if we don't talk about that plan to the people in our lives that are closest to us, to those people in our lives that we're leading. If we cannot have the courage to speak up about the vision, then the vision just stays on the paper. Say that again. If you don't have the courage to speak up about your vision, the vision will stay on the paper. Men, don't leave your vision on the paper. Don't leave your vision in your notes on your phone. Make your vision come alive in your life by speaking it to others. Let it come out of your mouth. Manhood is all about seeing where to go and then saying where to go, declaring the direction of your life, speaking towards the obstacles that are in the way, speaking towards the end goal, the results, speaking towards the benefits. People follow what they hear and what they see you do. And if your vision remains on paper and unspoken, people won't follow that. So we need to be able to see it and speak it. See it and speak it. We need the courage to lead the way by speaking, communicating the direction. And then the very last thing we need the courage to do. So we need the courage to, to speak up, to assert ourselves, to have a vision, to speak about a vision. And then men, the last thing we need is the courage to love. And I'm going to wrap this episode up with love. Because if you read down through 1 Corinthians 13, the infamous love chapter that's read at almost every wedding, we need as men to be able to love well. And it takes courage to be able to do that. It takes courage when you stand up on your wedding day and you say, I do. And then you read down through the scriptures about what love is, that it is patient, it is kindness, it is long suffering, it keeps no records of wrongs, it goes first. Guys, men, this takes courage to love like this. And in this world, we're called to love. We're called to love the Lord. Love God with all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. We're called to love you. We need to love ourselves. We need to love our wives. We need to love our family, our kids. We need to love the people at work. Guys, we need the courage to love. So I want to challenge you, men, moving forward in your life. Stop being silent. This is a generation where far too many men are choosing silence, and they're not leading, they're not loving, they're not going anywhere. The people and things in their life are falling apart because they're too quiet. And so don't be affected by this one day longer, 1 minute longer. If you're a man today, pick up that book, The Silence of Adam by Larry Crabb. Get it in your spirit. Let it change you, because I promise you this, that the best things in this life, the things that God intended for you, are on the other side of you speaking up as a man, you declaring where you're going and what matters to you, and God's purpose for yourself in your life. That comes on the other side of the courage to speak up. So men, if you're listening, we need to have the courage to speak up. Everybody and everything depends on it. So don't go a day longer in silence. Well, that's it, guys. I hope that has challenged you. I hope it's helped you. And remember this, your life matters, so keep it in tune.